Ima Firin My Lazar.
Lazarbeam, I would say, is one of the GOATs within the franchise. And I know what some of you are thinking. This is going to be too easy because Lazarbeam has crazy damage and comboed with this infinite pierce, it's literally unbeatable. And for the most part, you'd be correct. But what if I told you there are actually several roadblocks that it faces when going solo? So let's see how we actually get over these roadblocks. But before we begin, let me lay out the rules for you. Only Lazarbeam, no power-ups or Zen Garden, skip all levels that force the use of another plant, pre-placed plants are fine, and lastly, coins earned throughout the challenge can be used to buy plant food, but no replaying levels to farm coins. Oh, and about 90% of people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed, so if you end up enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always unsubscribe. Alright, let's embark on the Lazarbeam's path of destruction. Ancient Egypt was actually a little too easy and no challenges really posed a threat to the Lazarbeam. And for this reason, we're going to be super speeding through Ancient Egypt. But while this happens, I'll explain the stats of the Lazarbeam. At max level, its cost goes from 200 to 100. Its recharge rate goes from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Its health triples from 300 to 900. Its normal attack damage goes from 40 to 180. But if you apply the mastery buff, it multiplies it by 3, making it 540. But in game, you can multiply that even more by the amount of zombies that are being hit. So for example, if there's 10 zombies being pierced by one laser, it would mean that one Lazarbeam's one shot did 5,400 damage. But that aside, its plant food power also gets boosted from 1,800 to 3,200. And lastly, every time you place it down, because of its mastery buff, it has a 20% chance to boost on spot. So it's a pretty powerful plant, but you'll start to notice in the later worlds that it falls off with its sun cost. The 100 sun without any sunflowers can be detrimental in some levels. But this wasn't a problem in Ancient Egypt, so of course we beat it all very easily. Next up, Day 1 of Pirate Seas started, and throughout this entire challenge, you're going to notice a pattern with my Lazarbeam placements. And this pattern was that I would only use 5 Lazarbeam per level. Since the Lazarbeam is so overpowered, I wanted to do a little mini challenge and see if it was possible for only 5 Lazarbeam to beat the entirety of the game. And this was also very easily accomplished for days 2 and 3 because they only sent in the most basic of zombies. Day 4, we get our first level in the Pirate Seas with 2 flags and bucket heads in that bottom lane, but you can see that even the bucket heads get 3-shotted by the Lazarbeam, making day 4 easily beatable as well. Days 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11 followed, posing no threats to the Lazarbeam. Day 14, I prepped some defenses. And again, these 5 Lazarbeam were more than enough with even the barrels not posing any threat to them. Day 15, we had to protect these flowers from being trampled on. And I don't know why, but I placed the Lazarbeam behind the flowers when I should have placed them in front. And we're also introduced to imp cannons this level, but the Lazarbeam's range is just so good and the damage is also so powerful that the cannons get instantly taken out. Day 16, we have to protect these 2 spring beans with 1 flag. So of course, I immediately placed 2 Lazarbeams right behind the spring beans, slowly filling in the other lanes whenever I got enough sun. And day 16 was easily beat. Day 17, we have to defeat 20 zombies in 10 seconds. And since the Lazarbeams damage the zombies so quickly, the next waves get sent in very quickly as well, which made this challenge very easy to beat. Day 22 is probably one of the best prep your defenses levels in the game. And of course, I prepped defenses. And we didn't even get to see any of the imps make it across the water because the Lazarbeams were just taking out the cannons instantly, making day 22 simple. Day 23, we had to protect more flowers from being trampled on, but this time the flowers were a little farther forward. But even here, I was confident in the Lazarbeam's ability and placed them in the very far back. But this ended up costing me because I couldn't get the last sun that I needed in time and place the Lazarbeam quick enough, and that one zombie trampled the flowers, causing me to actually lose on a very easy level. On the second attempt, I was much more careful, and instead of planting the Lazarbeam in the bottom lane where that seagull was heading, I planted a Lazarbeam in that top lane where the zombie had trampled the flowers. But because of this, I actually had to sacrifice the lawnmower to the seagull. And these are the types of levels that are very bad for the Lazarbeam because they send in the zombies too fast, and I can't get all of my Lazarbeam down because the sun production is just very slow. But that aside, day 23 was beat on this attempt. Day 24, we have to protect these 2 spring beans on the outer lanes, and the first thing I did was planting the Lazarbeams right behind them, later filling in the rest of the lanes as I got enough sun. And normally the threats here are the swinging pirates or the imp cannons, but the swinging pirates get damaged and killed before they land, and the same goes with the imp cannons, that they get destroyed before they can even launch an imp onto the spring beans. And that was actually all of Pirate Seas beat with the laser beam. Next up, Wild West was actually an interesting one because whenever the levels allowed it, I tried to use only one laser beam. And this was of course possible due to the fact that the mine carts existed, and then there was one mine cart that could reach all 5 lanes. And on day 1, I would move the laser beam wherever it was needed, and it would just easily end up taking out all the zombies in the lane because the strongest ones were the coneheads who needed 2 shots to beat, and the rest were of course 1 shot, allowing us to beat day 1 using only one laser beam. Day 2 wasn't actually possible with only one laser beam because the mine carts didn't allow it, so I used 2 laser beam this time. But even this allowed some enjoyment of the levels because it felt like I had to micromanage the laser beams, making it somewhat of a puzzle level, which was also very easily defeated. Day 3 was the same as day 2, and I had to use 2 laser beams. This level also introduced a piano zombie who instantly got shot down. Day 5, we had a mine cart that could allow me to use only 1 laser beam. And day 5 had a lot more zombies than day 1, so it was actually more of a challenge, as I was having to constantly move my laser beam around and try to target the dynamite zombies so that they didn't jump over before I could get to them. And this also allowed for some pretty satisfying moments with some zombies in the entire lane getting one-shotted by the laser beam. And defeating this last armored zombie, day 5 had been beaten with only 1 laser beam. Day 6, defenses were prepped. And I abandoned the mic carts for this one and just went with the regular 5 laser beam placement. And these guys completely dominated every zombie that was sent at us. Day 7, I'd gotten pretty tired of just moving the laser beam around on the mine cart, so I just went back to using 5 laser beam per level. And this was of course enough to beat day 7. Day 10, however, was where another threat to the laser beam and its high sun cost came in. The Chicken Wrangler, which actually this first one was very easy to beat as I had laser beams in those 3 lanes. And one was sent in this bottom middle lane and I didn't realize it, so the laser beam actually procced the chickens, allowing them to make it all the way to the end since I didn't have enough sun for laser beam. And then another one was sent and the chickens in the bottom lane made it all the way because I didn't have a laser beam there to protect it, causing me to lose one more time. And then on the second attempt, I actually had to start implementing some stalling tactics. And the stalling tactic was just saving up sun and not killing this first zombie for as long as possible. And then slowly getting my laser beams down, but then also stalling the second zombie to farm more sun. And then as soon as we had a laser beam in every lane, it was basically GG's even for the chickens, because the infinite pierce of the laser beam makes the chickens themselves very easy. The only problem was not having a laser beam in the lane, which allowed the chickens to make it to the end last time. So this time day 10 was beat very easily. Day 11 only allowed me to use 500 sun, but this was actually perfect as the laser beam only costs 100 and I could place one in every lane. Day 13 gave me 2 mine carts that had full lane coverage, so I actually went back to only using 2 laser beam this time. And it was pretty cool because these dynamite zombies would jump, but the laser beam would get a shot off right before, so the dynamite would actually die right as it lands. Once again, El Bozo. The mechanical bulls were also sent this level, but similar to the bucket heads, they get 3-shotted by the laser beam. Day 14 was another chicken level, but this time the chicken wranglers get sent in pretty late, so I had enough time to place all my laser beams down, allowing me to completely decimate the chickens without a problem. Days 15, 16, and 17 were all 3 very easily beaten. Day 18, defenses were prepped. And there were again a lot of chickens in this level, but since we had the laser beam in every lane, the chickens were completely dominated. And with those being the only threat, day 18 was easily beaten. Days 19, 21, and 23 were all very easily beaten with minimal strategy required. The hardest of these was day 23 because I had to place my laser beams in front of the flowers since there were a lot of chickens, but even this wasn't a problem. And here we were, day 24, the last level that we play of the Wild West. And the first thing I did was combine all the walnuts that we had to protect into one lane, and then afterwards placing a laser beam right behind them. I also stalled this first zombie until I had a decent amount of sun, since I knew that this level also had chickens in it. And this allowed me to beat the entirety of the levels, including the chickens, on the very first attempt. And that was all of Wild West beaten with only a max level laser beam. Next up, Frostbite Caves was probably the most difficult world of this entire challenge, and as you've most likely already guessed, it's mainly due to the freezing mechanic of this world. Day 1 doesn't have any freezing though, so we breezed past it. And normally, even though plants aren't freeze resistant in these max level challenges, it's pretty easy to go against the frozen mechanic because we can just place another plant behind them to unfreeze the frozen plant. But with the laser beam, this becomes a lot more difficult because the laser beam just costs so much, and at most times we don't don't have enough to pull that off. But luckily, day 2 only one of our laser beams froze, so we were able to beat it pretty easily. Day 4 didn't have any freezing. Day 6, however, went horrifically at the start because the 3 laser beams that I placed in the back that were half frozen got fully frozen after the first flag. But then I got a couple more laser beam down. As the last wave was being sent in, all of them got frozen, and now I was only left with 1 laser beam. By using some shoveling strats, I was able to shovel the laser beam and then place it in another lane to take out the zombies that were approaching. And I did this a couple of times, but then I was able to buy another laser beam organically for the other zombies. This bottom laser beam actually completely sold against a snowball thrower and got frozen, so I had to shovel the top laser beam and then place another one to take care of the snowball thrower, finally beating day 6 with all my frozen beans. Day 7, however, I developed another strat. If I saw that a laser beam was half frozen, I would just shovel it up and get the sun back instead, because I knew if it got fully frozen, it was completely cooked. So it's better that I got 75 sun back instead of just leaving it frozen. And using the strategy, I kept my laser beam pretty healthy throughout the entirety of day 7, allowing me to beat it. Day 9 actually didn't have any snowstorms. Day 11 actually had a lot of snowstorms, so I was having to micromanage my shoveling a lot with the laser beams, because as I'd shovel more and place them down again, the other laser beam would get frozen, so I'd have to shovel those and replace those as well. But with some pretty aggressive and consistent micromanaging, I took out the 4 big waves of day 11. Day 12, I prepped some defenses, and I chose to plant this first column in the middle-ish area because I was positive that they were going to get frozen by a snowstorm. And as some of them did, I started planting a column of laser beam behind them to try and unfreeze them, since I actually had enough sun for this level. Oh yeah, I should also mention that the 5 laser beam rule was completely off the table for Frostbite Caves, and I won't be trying to do it for the levels that seem like it's not possible. But aside from that, day 12 was beat. Day 13 had 4 flags again, and we had to protect these flowers in the back from being trampled on. And this was also a level that was making me micromanage my shoveling a lot, because a lot of consistent snowstorms were coming in right as I'd place my laser beam down. And slowly but surely, my laser beam were able to take out all the zombies within this level, including this gargantuar that was sent in the final wave that I used a plant food for, and it got completely decimated without throwing any imps. Day 15 is a nice level because we get these 2 pepper poults to keep our laser beams warm. The only actual lane we have to worry about is the middle lane, because it doesn't have any fire plants to warm the beans up. But even then, this wasn't too difficult of a challenge to deal with. 17 was beaten very easily. Day 19, I actually kind of failed with my shoveling strats, so by the time the final wave was sent in, most of my laser beams were frozen. But a pretty cool thing was happening with these frozen laser beams. You can see that there's just a laser beam stuck out of the laser beam that was frozen, and it was just on the screen. Sadly, it didn't do any damage to the zombies, but it was a cool visual effect. It was cool because the laser beam in the bottom middle lane also had a laser glowing out of it, but it was a much dimmer one because it was in the earlier stages of shooting. But visual glitches aside, day 19 was beat. Day 20 with 3 flags was also very micromanage heavy, but besides 1 laser beam getting frozen, the others I was able to keep warm. Day 22 also introduced the weasels, which are similar to the chickens, but they were also very easy to beat with the laser beam's max pierce. Day 23 was a nice level because right as a twin sunflower gets unfrozen, it automatically produces 2 sun for us. I of course shoveled them right after, but it's too fast for me to shovel them before they produce the sun, so I end up just taking it. And with the help of that sun, I get a column of laser beam down very fast, allowing me to power through day 23. Day 26 actually got very close because similar to one of the days on the Wild West, the weasel hoarders in this level were sent in very early. And as I didn't have enough sun for a laser beam, a few of them in that bottom lane made it to the end. And then at the same time, a couple of dodos in the very top lane took that lawnmower as well. And then right after this, weasels were being sent into that top lane without a laser beam, so I had to shovel the laser beam in the bottom to get enough sun to place one in that top lane to defend against those weasels. But while doing this, some weasels spawned in the bottom lane, but by that time I did have enough sun for the last laser beam, so I placed it there. But then I shoveled it to defend another lane, but I had to place it down again and plant food it for more weasels. And thankfully this was the last of our headache, as no more weasel hoarders were sent within this level, and the final wave was beaten very easily. Day 27 doesn't have any snowstorms, but can be a problem due to the caveman ice pushers. As the laser beam's pierce is so good, the caveman ice pushers actually can't do much against it. And of course, the only other problem this level is the gargantuar, which even without the use of a plant food is very easily defeated with just 1 laser beam. And as these last 2 gargantuars are also taken down and the rutabagas are safe, day 27 was beat. Day 28 is the last level of Frostbite Caves and defenses were prepped. And there were some snowstorms with this level, but as I had enough sun, I would just plant more laser beans in the back to unfreeze the frozen ones, which made this level very easy. And that was all of Frostbite Caves beat with the max level laser bean. Next up, opposing to Frostbite Caves, Lost City actually met a very tragic fate. Not for the laser beam, of course, but for the zombies. Lost City was actually so easy due to the reason that we actually had a way to produce sun with the gold tiles. And this is the reason for me super speeding past it. I would even go as far as to say that Lost City was even easier than Ancient Egypt, and that is a very rare occurrence. There we have it. Lost City was beat with only a max level laser beam. Next up, and now we're in the far future, the home of Laserbeam. And far future itself was actually pretty easy for the most part, besides this one level that actually got pretty annoying. So days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 were easily taken down. But here we were, day 8, the only annoying level within far future. And you might have already guessed this, but the annoying factor was that I was dependent on the conveyor level to give me enough Laserbeam to beat this level. And on my first attempt, I was only given 2 Laserbeam, and this one jetpack zombie in the bottom lane made it all the way to the end. On my second attempt, things got very close as this conehead almost made it to the end, but I got a laser beam at the final second, defeating it. And the same thing happened as the second conehead was about to approach the end, and I got a laser beam at the very last second. But then the game rage baited me, as the most basic of zombies was reaching the end. And it didn't give me a laser beam as it made it past the lawn, but right as I was about to reach the house, it gave me my last laser beam that I needed. But of course, with this beam, I couldn't do anything, and I was taken down on this attempt as well. The next attempt was actually pretty cool, as I got 2 almost back-to-back laser beams that I quickly planted down, and I got 2 more laser beams that I was able to get down very fast. But then the same exact thing as last time happened. The basic zombie was reaching the end, and the game didn't give me a laser beam until it already made it past the lawn. On the 4th attempt, I was able to get 4 laser beam down without even killing a single zombie at first. And a couple of seconds later, I thankfully got my final laser beam. And with these 5, my defense basically became unstoppable, and I actually didn't have to plant anymore. And day 8 was finally taken down. And as I said before, most far future was very easy, so I'm going to super speed to the next interesting level, which is the boss level of the far future. Yep, I actually get to play the boss of this world because laser beam appears in its conveyor. In my very first laser beam instantly plant fooded and took out about 1/4 of its health. And somehow I got 4 laser beams back to back to back to back. And my placements were semi-strategic, with them being in the top middle lane and bottom middle lane, which ensured that at all times there was 2 laser beams hitting the boss. And of course, right as I got plant food, I'd use it on the boss, taking out a good chunk of its health. And I actually noticed that the laser beam didn't really do much damage to the boss, and I was mostly just dependent on the plant food ability, which did a lot more damage. And even though I lost a couple of lawnmowers due to my placements, I beat the far future boss on my first attempt. And that was all of far future, beaten with just the max level laser beam. Next up, Dark Ages, the first couple of days are pretty interesting because we're provided with sun gravestones, and we have to one by one place laser beams in lanes with sun gravestones so that we have enough sun for the next laser beam. And in doing this, it makes night 1 and night 2 possible without the need of any additional sun support. But night 3, we do have to start using the gold bloom because there's no sun gravestones on this level. And the gold bloom actually poses a little bit of a problem because it gives me enough sun to plant 4 laser beams, leaving one lane completely open. So I have to shovel one of my laser beams to plant another one in that other lane so it's able to take out the zombie there. And throughout most of the level, I have to keep repeating the same tactic until I finally get my second gold bloom and I'm able to plant all 5 of my laser beams safely, which then allows me to beat night 3 and 5, 6, 7, 9, 11, and even 12, where we have to protect these puff shrooms from the oncoming zombies. Day 15, defenses have to be prepped. And I chose to go with the 5 bean strat, and thankfully the laser beams are able to one-shot the wizards before they can sheepify any of them, making them a non-threat. Day 16 introduces the king, who is also very quickly taken down by the laser beams. Day 17 has the speed and health pots, and a gargantuar that I took out using a plant food. And now we're on night 19, where we have to protect these 3 magnet shrooms. And normally the gravestones in the very front pose a threat because they take up the space where we usually plant our plants, but since all the laser beams are enough in the very back, they aren't a problem. And this allows us to safely beat the Dark Ages with only a max level laser beam, with of course sun support from a gold bloom. And next up, Neon Mixtape Tour days 1, 2, 4, and 5 were all very easily beaten without any special things happening. I wanted to just stop on day 7 because it probably had one of the most satisfying laser beams of this entire challenge. And that was right here in this middle lane where a bunch of zombies had gathered up. So right at the end, I placed a laser beam that instantly plant fooded, taking them all out. But besides that, day 7 was also easy. And days 8, 12, 13, 15, 17, 18, and lastly 20 weren't much of a threat either. Day 21 shouldn't have been a problem either, but I had a big skill issue, and that was that I completely mistimed my placement of my laser beam in the top lane, and the zombie somehow trampled the flowers. So of course, on the second attempt,
I made sure to completely obliterate that zombie.
and proceeded to decimate the rest of the level. And after that loss on day 21, there wasn't really a level in the Neon Mixtape Tour that posed much of a threat. So days 23, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, and the last level of day 30 were all beaten very easily. Of course, normally the microphone whippers or even the arcade machine zombies can be a problem, but the long range of the laser beam completely negates these guys. And that was all of Neon Mixtape Tour, beat with only a max level laser beam. Next up, Jurassic Marsh is another level that we're just going to super speed through because it was very easy and there weren't any levels that posed much of a threat. There were some towards the end that had the T-Rex dinosaur that makes the zombies very fast, but even then the lawnmowers were able to back the laser beams up and were able to beat them pretty easily. And that was all of Jurassic Marsh, beat with only a max level laser beam. Next up, in the Big Wave Beach, the laser beam was very nice to have because when the plants have a shorter range, these levels take forever as the zombies themselves take forever to make it across the water. But the laser beams are able to instantaneously take out all the zombies, speeding up the levels by a lot. And due to this, days 1, 2, 4, and 6 were swiftly beaten. Day 7, however, only limited us to these lily pads. But thankfully, there was a lily pad in each lane, so I was able to get down a laser beam for every zombie that was on the map. And with a couple of laser beams taking some damage from the scuba zombies, this level, even with its restrictions, was beaten easily. Day 9 gave us sufficient space as well, so it wasn't much of a problem. Same went for day 11. Day 12, I prepped some defenses, and I stuck with the 5 beam placement as I was positive it was going to be more than enough to beat this level. And of course it was. Days 17, 19, 20, and 22 were all easily beaten. Day 23 is of course the level where we have to protect these banana launchers, and the early fishermen can be a problem, but thankfully I'm able to get laser beams down in front of the banana launchers before any of the fishermen are able to do any damage. There was one laser beam that got an octopus stuck on it, so I used the banana launcher's banana and got rid of the octopus from on top of it. And things actually did get a little close, so I ended up using a couple of plant foods in order to take out the gargantuars, and this allowed me to easily beat day 23. Day 25 was also very easy to beat, but day 27 was actually a little bit of a threat because the octo zombies, although they do get beaten easily, were able to get octopus on 4 of my laser beams. But thankfully this was by the end of the very final wave, and even though I ended up losing 4 lawnmowers, I was still able to beat day 27. Day 28, we're only allowed to lose 5 plants, but we beat it without losing a single plant. 29 was pretty easy as well, but day 30 is the level of doom and despair where we have to protect these guacodiles from the fishermen. And I got laser beam down in all the lanes on all the lily pads that existed, but things quickly went south as a couple of surfers spawned and took out one of my laser beams. And this imp was getting very close to the guacodile, so I actually had to plant food the guacodile to protect it. But while this was happening, my laser beam in the top middle lane got smashed by the gargantuar, so I quickly shoveled the laser beam in the bottom lane and planted it in that top lane and then plant fooded it to take out the gargantuar. And after this, there weren't any more problems that we ran into within this level. And that was all of Big Wave Beach beaten with a max level laser beam. Next up, and I know we're doing a lot of super speeding with the max level laser beam, but y'all gotta trust me, most of modern day was just very easy until one level towards the end. But before we get to that level, back to the super speeding thing, because I just wanted to mention that the plant for next week is much more interesting. It's a plant that you'd think is very overpowered, but actually kind of just struggles against some of the zombies. And I know this because I've already played the first 3 worlds with it, and it's already starting to struggle within the Pirate Seas and Wild West. But no spoilers, and you're gonna have to wait until next week to see what plant I'm talking about. But here we were, the most difficult level of modern day. And you probably noticed that I've been saving up my coins and haven't bought any plant food, and that was just for this level. Because this level contains all-stars and newspaper zombies who we have to use plant food to defeat Otherwise, I'd just lose every time. But something pretty weird happened with this one newspaper zombie that was coming in, because I planted a laser bean in order to try to defeat it, and I was able to get it down to its non-newspaper form, but right after, it was able to quickly take out the laser bean, but then it stepped right over the flowers, but somehow it didn't count as me losing. And then it ran into the lawnmower, which took out the all-star, which almost trampled the flowers, but somehow I got saved. But after this, I was completely cooked because there was a bucket head in that top lane, and I didn't have enough sun to plant another laser bean, so the bucket head made it and trampled the flowers. On the second attempt, the first thing I did was buy 3 plant food, because with the amount of newspapers and all-stars, I knew I was going to need it. I stalled this imp a little bit and tried to farm as much sun as I could before the heavy zombies started coming in. I even planted around this bloom zombie and let it get past the flowers, making it all the way to the lawnmower just so I could farm and collect more sun. And this actually gave me enough sun to where I could have 5 laser beans on the map before the big threats started getting spammed. And as the all-stars would get close, I'd plant food my laser beans. Same thing with the gargantuars just to be safe. And in doing so, I pretty easily made it to the final wave of this level, which of course again started with an all-star that got plant fooded, and then 2 more gargantuars that I used 2 more plant food for. I actually ended up wasting some coins on plant food, but it's okay because this was the last difficult level of the entire challenge. And as we neared the end of day 31, we had now beaten all of PvZ2 with just a max level laser beam. Subscribe if you enjoyed. Okay, bye bye.